We are live.
Okay, coming in. I know I'm not here. Sorry, I was over. Mrs. Spielberg.
Yes.
I was over there.
Oh.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday. Coming to you live from Happy Days Cottage in Martha's Vineyard off the east coast of America. Mrs. Spielberg,
Yes.
are you going to say a big hello?
Hello.
You look very sporty today.
Well,
don't
thank you very much.
Very sporty indeed. It must be that new bicycle they've got.
Yeah, love the Peloton.
Yes, and I do want to actually say as well, Mrs. Spielberg, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Spielberg has took up a new hobby. She took up the mandolin.
No, the ukulele.
Oh, the ukulele, yes, the ukulele. So I've been listening to her strum her ukulele all week, and it's been marvellous. It's been absolutely
I will get better.
You will. You can only get better.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. Hopefully everybody else is getting better at cooking. No, it's been marvellous. She serenaded me with "You Are My Sunshine," and it was nice.
Thank you.
It was I might take the triangle back up.
No.
Okay, so let's get stuck in. We're going to make sticky toffee pudding. The first thing, I've just placed these on a low heat and we're rehydrating the Medjool dates. I want to get stuck in. I'm going to add the baking soda to these. So the baking soda, that's going to, obviously we know that the baking soda, it's an alkaline. When we add it in, anytime you add anything acidic to this, it's going to cause it to froth up. We want that on the dates. The reason why we do that is to soften those skins, so at the end they're not too soft. So now what we're going to do is add the baking soda, and we're just going to mash these. You can mash them first if you want to. You can see the fizz. Can you see that fizz happening inside? And that's basically now the baking soda is coming alive. Now when it comes to mashing these, Mrs. Spielberg, feel free if you want to. You could use, I'm using the good old-fashioned potato masher. You could use at home your pastry cutter, you know, if you've got a pastry cutter, or you could use, this is a pastry cutter.
Wait, you're moving it.
Sorry. You could use a pastry cutter, or you could use a fork if you wanted to.
I think you're doing this on purpose. You're basically putting it everywhere the camera is not.
Okay, Mrs. Spielberg. By Jove, Mrs. Spielberg. A few weeks behind the camera, and the talent's being told.
That's right.
See the way I'm mashing it?
Yeah.
So what that baking soda does, it changes the pH, and that's going to soften the skins. You know, hopefully one time when we're doing a show, as we move forward, we'll make something with chickpeas. When I cook chickpeas or most beans, I'll add a little bit of baking soda. It really softens the skin and stops the cooking. Will help with the cooking of it. And the chickpea, because everybody always has my hummus, and they're always like, wow, this is so soft and so creamy, and baking soda really softens the skin. So now that we've got these, you can see we've made a paste. It doesn't need to be too mashed. We're just basically mashing them so it can mix in nicely. I'm happy days with that. I feel good about it.
Smells good.
Dates are wonderful. We'll talk a little bit about dates. You know, when you want stuff to cool, Mrs. Spielberg, what you always want to do is take it off the countertop and place it onto the likes of a rack. See the way I've got it on a rack? And then the air's going to circulate. It's going to cook. It's going to cool quicker when anything's off a surface. So always remember, when we're cooling something, always onto a rack. Or you can use a trivet, or you could get a couple of cans, maybe 3 or 4 cans, and stick it on some cans, just so the cold air can do that, because it will conduct heat. One of the things, you know, when it comes to baking, let's start just get some of the basics out the way. We're going to use baking soda and baking powder. Baking powder is basically baking soda with an acid in there, a dry acid that's formulated. It comes from bicarbonated soda. Now a lot of us use, you know, you have all different brands across the country. I'm not here to sell any.
Let me guess, you don't work for either of these brands.
I don't.
Shocking.
It sounds like I'm the most unemployed person ever. Brands, don't go there, John. Stay away from John. No. Well, the reason why I say that is that there's so many cooking videos out there and people are just trying to sell you anything. A lot of you, first thing what we want to do, one of the things that a lot of us have had baking soda and baking powder for a long time, please just take a look at the date. If your date, if you can't see the date, without my glasses I can't see a wee thing. Without that it's hard to see. But one way you can test this, Mrs. Spielberg, is just, let me just grab the spoon. One of the ways you can test it, just put a little bit of water and a small amount of vinegar in a glass. So we've got a small amount of water and a small amount of vinegar, and just add the soda. If it froths up, see the way it's frothing up, sizzling, that usually means that it's okay, it's still alive. So give it a test for the sake of just adding a little bit as well. You know, baking soda needs acidity to make it come alive. Baking powder has some acidity built into it, so you don't need to. So a lot of the times you'll see baking powder in cookies, and then you'll see baking soda in anything with lemon, vinegar, brown sugar, something that can make it come alive. We're using both. We're going to get that nice rise. We're going to get the carbon dioxide, which is what happens in cake. So in looking at the dates, you know, I say Medjool dates in the recipe. This is a regular one of these dates you see in most grocery stores, and you know, when we look at these, they're quite tough. They're not, you got a large shine to them. And look, here's the, if you look at these beautiful Medjool dates, they're much different. And when we cut them open, these are much leathery than what the Medjool date is. And the Medjool date was something that it first come from the Middle East, and they brought them to Nevada in 1924, and we started growing them. They love a hot climate. It comes from the palm tree, and just when you look at how soft this is, it's got that beautiful, when you taste it, it has this rich caramel taste to it, and it's absolutely divine. It's like a soft caramel, and it's almost got a breeze of cinnamon in the back.
That's very poetic.
Do you like that?
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Well, maybe you could write a song
Oh.
with your ukulele about my lovely,
I know.
my lovely dates. Maybe you could call it The Date I Always Remember.
I'm only up to 3 chords, so it's a lot of pressure.
I do. So if you can, get the Medjool. I buy it, there's a company who I do buy, it's called King of Solomon, they do an organic one. I purchased them online and I really like them, but some grocery stores have some good ones. So it's important to do that. So let's start looking at this. First of all, with eggs, we want them room temperature, and the reason why you'll see in some recipes room temperature, it's basically because it helps the oven recover. And when it comes to your oven, think about it. You know, most ovens, we're going to cook this at 350 Fahrenheit. Most cakes are 350 to 375 Fahrenheit. A lot of people just put the oven on, they'll preheat it, and as soon as they hear that bing, they'll go for it straight away. If I can teach you anything on a Sunday, we try to teach you not only how to cook, enjoy life, have a wee laugh as such, but we also teach you the success of cooking and a little bit about the science. The hot air is always going to make your temperature in the oven go ding. But what happens is the walls of the oven, metal, is not 350 Fahrenheit. So what I always suggest when it comes to baking is always preheat your oven 30 minutes ahead of time. So after about 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to get that bing. But then what you...
Why Bing?
Is it ding?
Yeah.
Is it ding? Sorry.
Whatever.
Well, you say tomato, I say tomato.
Exactly.
You say potato, I say potato. Sausages. Like we're gonna.
Oh.
Listen, come over to the kitchen quick.
Come over to the oven.
Come over to the oven. We're gonna go down. So now, what you want to do is always, Alexa, stop. This has been in the oven. So what you want to do now is have a wee peek at your cake. Oh God, I've steamed my glasses up again.
Oh no! Wait, look at me. Oh no.
So look, I know the cake's done. See the cake? I can tell that that's done. It's got a nice rise, but you can use a cake thermometer. We know as chefs, you get to know when something's done. So I know that's done, so I'm going to bring that out. You can come over this side, Mrs. Spielberg.
Smells so good.
Yes, so I'm going to bring this out for a second. Let me just bring this out, and I'll bring this over So I'm just going to bring this over to this side. I just wanted you to quickly see this. Now we're steaming the cake, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So I'm going to place this on. Remember we talked about things cooling down? I'm going to place the foil back on just so it can steam a little bit longer. Alexa, set a timer for 15 minutes. If I ever meet that gentleman from Amazon, that Mr. Bezos guy, I'm going to say, could you please change Alexa? So you have to say, Alexa, please. I really wish
People are really losing their manners.
I think that's one thing we could. Okay, so the oven we were talking about, it basically what happens is you want 30 minutes, and the reason why we do that, we want the oven to be able to recover quickly. You're putting something room temperature, you're putting something cold in there. So what happens is you want it to be able to recover. That recovery is going to help with the rising of a cake. Trust me. Always 30 minutes beforehand. With an egg, we crack it on a flat surface. I've always found if we crack it on a flat surface, it's the best way. Always crack into a bowl. I know a lot of these trendy chefs, you see videos where they'll have trendy chefs, and then what will happen is, go on.
Can you cook in Pyrex?
You could, yeah, just be careful with it. Make sure you give it a jolly good buttering in the Pyrex, and then keep your eye on the sides with the Pyrex as well. But actually, we're cooking in a steam bath today. It's more when it's dry cooking. The reason why, if we get a piece of shell in there, I've just dropped that in on purpose. If we get a piece of shell, we can fish that out. Oh, sausages. We can fish it out. If you get that in your food processor, you know, you'll see a lot of these trendy chefs trying to do it with one hand into their mixer, and what happens then, it's in someone's cake. All of a sudden your Auntie Dot's there, and she's already only got a few teeth left, you know, and she's eating the cake, and she gives you one of those.
That must be only in your family.
Wait, what?
All of my aunties have all their teeth.
Yeah, but you're American. And that's no offence to the English audience. And also for any new viewers, these are not my teeth. These were made in America. Let's get the elephants out.
I also just wanted to say happy Thanksgiving to all of our friends in Canada who are watching.
Yes.
And our good friends, the Alexanders, who we met on a Crystal Cruise.
Yes. So what we're doing, Mrs. Spielberg, we're actually creaming the butter, the brown sugar and the butter, and we're going old school here. We're using one of these old style mixers, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I want people to know that you can do this. I have all the fancy tools.
We
I have
do.
two different stand mixers, but sometimes I like to show you the basics, because that's what it's about, because otherwise, if I don't do that, you're going to have a tendency to think, oh, sausages, John, you know, why don't you do that? Can we come over? I want to show you start this caramel just quickly. I'm going to get the pan. It's going to put the pan on. We're going to start the caramel sauce. So with the caramel sauce, we're going to use half of the cup of cream. Mrs. Spielberg, I measured them out separately. Don't put them in the same bowl. The reason is you'll forget. We have a tendency to forget. I'm adding the cream to the pan. I'm adding some maple syrup. I think it gives it a nice, rich taste. And then I'm adding some corn syrup. Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, corn syrup, that's a bit, you know, corn syrup's supposed to be so bad. Listen, it's not high fructose corn syrup. They do come from the same place. They both come from a corn starch, but it's actually a glucose. And high fructose corn syrup is corn syrup with some of it taken away and then fructose added to it. The reason why we have that's called an invert sugar. An invert sugar, because when you look under a microscope at sugar, it basically, what this is my microscope.
You look like a pirate.
I'm not very good at that charades, am I?
No.
Is it charades it's called?
Charades.
Charades, you know, where you move.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Book.
Yeah.
Song.
Whatever, microscope. You're back to the microscope.
I don't know why you choose it every week. No, I'm only joking, we love you. So, okay, the reason why we do it's an inverted sugar. When you look at sugar, it has jaggedy edges. When you melt sugar, it has a tendency to want to come back together and crystallise. Just that small amount of corn syrup stops it from crystallising.
We all want to come together and crystallize on a crystal cruise. You like that?
Spielberg, since you picked up that ukulele, you're getting very romantic. Okay, So what we want to do, Mr. Spielberg, is we've got the sugar in there, and the reason why we use half of the amount of the cream is because I'm trying to get, as quick as I can, a little brown colour to it. You know, like start to get the temperature up there, start to get some colour. If you added all of the cream, it would take you longer to do it. It's easier at this stage to do it that way. Sometimes the French will add a little bit of lemon juice because that breaks down the sugars quicker as well. It's up to you what you want to do. Let's go back a little bit.
Question, for the glass bowls, what's the kind that you're using, or what kind do you like?
So sausages,
Let me look.
glass bowls. I don't know what it is. I think I got them from that popular website on the internet. It says multifunction.
Maybe they're from Crate and Barrel.
I got them from the popular website where people get the stuff online, and I always measure ingredients. Look at the way we flow. We flow so good. We flow like the white swan on the ocean. That's how we flow. We're creaming. The reason why we cream, we want to get the sugar nice and creamed, okay? Next thing what we want to do is start adding the egg one at a time. So I'm going to add one egg to it, and this is going to bring this together. The egg's coming in. So you can see that it's creaming. And I have to say, Mrs. Spielberg, in one respect, I do like going old. When I say old school, I like using these hand mixers because you can see what's going on, and it's sometimes with a stand mixer, when you're making a small amount like this, not a bread, it's hard to see and it sticks to the bottom of the bowl. You know, you have to do it. So we can see the eggs incorporated, Mr. Spielberg. Now we're going to add the other egg to it. When I was classically French trained, we would always break the shell on the board because we didn't want the shell, the inside of the shell, to actually go inside when you crack it because of bacteria. That was the old classic way of doing it. So now we're creaming this together. You can see we've got some good creaminess going on, okay?
Yep.
So now we've got the eggs, the flour, the sugar. We want to sift the flour and the baking powder, and the reason why we sift flour is, if you think about it, a flour comes from the mill, it's pre-sifted, but when it gets to the store, I'm talking to you as I do, I'm just going to make sure my caramel's okay. You can stay there. I'm giving it a wee stir. Look at the way it dances.
Very nice.
This is why I'm good at pole sticking.
Watch out.
I love it when we normally go to the avenue, you know, and we've got so many friends and family on Crystal, and then after that you think, okay, I'll have an early night, but it is a sea day tomorrow, and then you hear the music and pulse. Anyway, okay, the reason why we sift the flour is it travels from the mill to the store.
Why is the mill over here?
It's over that way.
Yeah.
Everything in my life is over that way. Over there. Sometimes when people ask for directions, I say it's over there, and then after they've gone, I'm like, oh, sausages, it was over there. And the reason why we sift it is that when it travels to the store, the grocery store, it's packed in a box, and that packing can cause some cakiness, some lumps, and we don't want that in the cake. So the best way to avoid that is to sift it, to aerate it. And I say the same thing with the actual baking powder as well. So baking powder, we're adding baking powder. So see them lumps? Can you see those? I don't know if you can. The camera will show that. Those lumps, the little, you can just use your finger or a spoon just to get them. But those little things there, they can be a rascal. You know, sometimes when we're making a cake, we can get one of those in there. You take a slice of cake and you see this cavity of flour, and we don't want that cavity of flour. We want to
You've said sausages so many times that people are running out of their cocktails.
Do you know, it's so funny, tattooed on the inside of my mind is Doug.
Doug's on today.
Doug would always, I think it was Doug was the first one, every time Chef says, every time Chef says sausages, I take a shot.
Other people have adopted the philosophy.
Oh gosh, by Jove, Jimmy the Cricket. It's a good job on a Crystal's all-inclusive, so you can consume as much as you want and have a jolly good dance, and the friendly staff are there to applaud you. Okay, Mrs. Spielberg, we're going to add the flour. At this stage, please be gentle. So normally what I'll do is give this a little stir. I won't turn it on because
The flour would be all over me.
yeah, well sometimes what happens with the old style mixers, you know, it has a tendency to not be as slow as what some of the others are. So this is how I do my exercise, you know. Now that I've brought it together, I'll turn it on. So I've got it turned on. So I've just mixed it together. You can see that it's mixed together. And at this stage now, I'll add the date paste. So the date paste is going to come in here. So the date paste, you can see it's dark in colour, but you can see that it's done its job. And that baking soda, as well as building carbon dioxide in the cake, which gives you the bubbles that we know, it's also softened that date skin. Now, a lot of the time, Mrs. Spielberg, I've had this cake in England. It was originally from vanilla extract. And then some orange zest. Always coming around. A lot of people go this way with the microplane. We want to go this way, coming around it. I'm going to check. I can smell with my nose the caramel's starting to catch. Come and look at that. But you can see the caramel's got this nice colour to it. And at this stage now, I'm going to add the cream to it. Okay, so we're going to head back to the other side. It's got a nice colour to it. We're going to go back over to the cake, Mrs. Spielberg.
I'm going to back up slowly.
We go, yeah, back up slowly. The caramel's fine. We've reduced that down, and I'll show you that version in a second. Sorry, my back's on a little bit back and forward today. You know, as you know, we're cooking live, and sometimes with caramel, you've got to watch the little rascal. You can, as a chef, you build these nuances. So with orange zest, Mrs. Spielberg, we want to come around, and come around when we're zesting. A lot of people go the other way, and you know, when we say a small orange, this is a small orange, this is a big orange, we'd have half of that amount. It wouldn't be the worst thing if you was half a teaspoon over, actually, so don't worry about that. And then we add the orange zest to there. And I find by using orange zest, Mrs. Spielberg, in cooking, it has a tendency to give the palate the sweetness what it wants and the aroma. Because when I've had this in England, a lot of people will make it and they use way too much sugar. And that sugar, I mean, my American teeth want to jump out into a glass, you know, because they're just like, oh, you know, it's just so sweet. And it really shouldn't be like that. It should be just a gentle dance, you know, it should come in your mouth, and it should be, you know, just like a nice dance, you know what I mean? Not too where it's aggressive. Okay, so now we want to mix the rest of the dough. So we've got all of our ingredients in there, so we can see the cake batter's just looking fine now. And then it feels good. Now we don't want to over-incorporate too much air. We want it to come together, but we don't want to. We're not making a souffle where we're looking to get lots of air bubbles in there. So we want to make sure that we, as a child, I would always love doing this, Mrs. Spielberg. This is my favourite part.
Someone just, asked it where the cocktail was.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, if you're going to lick the beaters, make sure that they're turned off.
Yes. No, we don't lick the beaters, by Jove.
You said when you were a kid.
No, I used to press the finger and go, pew. Jiminy Cricket.
I lick the beaters. I don't feel bad about
just
it.
Just make sure, just fold it over. Now, don't over mix. If you put too much air in your cake, there's a jolly good chance you'll end up with a deflated cake because you've got too much air in it. The air for a cake, it's different than a cookie, and it's different than a souffle or something like that. The smell already of that orange and vanilla is truly, truly wonderful. At this stage now, Mrs. Spielberg, a lot of the time when we're making creme brulee, or we're making steamed cakes as such, you put it in a bath of water and you just slide everywhere, and that's a bit of a rascal. Just by taking a piece of paper towel, kitchen towel, placing it on the bottom, that's going to stop it from sliding. And it's the same when you're making creme brulee or anything in a water bath. A water bath when we're cooking this today is going to cause a steaming process. You can make the cake both ways, and I will show you. I've gone all out and I've made the cake dry, and then we made it in a steam bath. So we'll show you the difference in the actual crumb. At this stage now, we're going to add the cake batter to the actual cake itself. So you can see the cake batter's coming in. And remember, as I said to you before, the air inside, we're not worried about that because, you know, it's carbon dioxide which causes from the reaction of the baking powder and baking soda. So what I like to do, Mrs. Spielberg, is, you know, you have a tendency to want to always lick your fingers or get it really sticky. It's just a natural reaction, but I usually have two of those. Alexa, stop. At this stage now, Mrs. Spielberg, we just spread it out. See the way we're spreading this out into the corners? And it's a jolly good idea, you know, when you're making a cake, is what I'll normally do to make sure it cooks evenly. If it's a thick cake like this, I'll actually just take it and I'm going to give it a little knocking. Let me put a piece of towel on there. I know that can be loud, metal on wood, so I'm just going to put my kitchen towel and I'll just give it a knocking. And what that does is it gets it in the corner, and what it does is make sure for even baking.
If this was baked in a steam oven, what % steam setting would you use?
I would probably go about 60% steam. Okay, so what I always do now at this stage, Mrs. Spielberg, I'm coming over to the actual, to the oven. So I'm coming over to the oven, over here. I'm going to take a kettle. I really like this kettle. I like that it's got different temperatures on it. So it's a jolly good kettle if you're looking for a kettle, and I don't work for the company, just for the record. I'm going to add the boiling water to the side, and we're looking to come halfway up the side. This steaming guarantees for a real moist cake.
So you don't put any butter or flour in the cake pan?
And the cake pan, we buttered it, we pre-butter. You always want to make sure you butter the cake pan. This is actually for both steaming and dried. I've got a jolly good baking. I use this gold one by it's by William Sonoma. I don't work for them, but I really like it. It's my favorite baking line. And I think it's good. And just folding it over, you know, if you have a tendency to play with it too much, you're going to end up ripping it. All we're looking for is just actually trapping the steam, you know, in there.
And yes, that's a paper towel at the bottom. If you missed it.
It's just a kitchen paper towel, one that's on the roll, you know, the roller stuff, or whatever you call it.
Too fast.
Too fast, just the roll. Okay, now we're going to take this off. Now, when we bake a cake, we always bake on the middle shelf. And the reason why we bake cakes on the middle shelf is because on the middle shelf, we're going to end up with even cooking. So from the walls, from the bottom to the top, when we bake cakes, we don't want 2 layers for a home oven. In a professional oven, we have a lot of drive and a lot of power, 240 volts. But, so actually, this is 240 as well, but a professional oven is much different. But if you put 2 in there, it's hard for the oven to recover. So I always say, if you want the great results, always bake 1 cake at a time. And I only ever, in my home oven, bake 1 tray of cookies at the same time as well. So we've got the caramel, we've got a nice colour to it, and then what we want to do now is a little bit of butter. Now it's up to you, you don't have to add the butter, but I think it gives it a nice silkiness, okay? So the butter's going in there, and the butter's going to melt inside of it, and you can see that this has got that lovely, you know, colour to it. It's almost like a mahogany, would you say? What would you say, Mrs. Spielberg, for that?
Yeah.
And see, it's just that beautiful, but look at the consistency of it.
It's like a caramel color.
Mrs. Spielberg, I was looking for poetry.
But it's a caramel color. It's not a mahogany. Mahogany is way darker. Mahogany is like your glasses.
I can't see them. Okay, so here's the sauce. Now, listen to me. If it's your first time making this, and if you split the sauce, and when I say split the sauce, the fat and the sugars come separate. Don't stress. Add about a tablespoon of water. Just whisk it and add about a little bit of water, about a tablespoon of water. It will bring it back together again. So I don't want you to stress. You don't need no cornstarch. You don't need nothing. If it separates, a little bit of water, I promise you it will come back together. Okay. So we can see we've got the caramel, we can see we've got our cake. At this stage now, Mrs. Spielberg, what we want to do is bring that cake out. So the cake, we know it's happy days. Now we know when it comes out, it's going to have water at the bottom. So what I want to do is place it onto a towel. Alexa, stop. I'm going to go a little bit overly. Alexa, stop. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Is it okay, everybody, if I go a little bit over? I do apologise. The cake would come out. We bring the cake out. Okay, Mrs. Spielberg,
Yep.
It's still warm. We turn it upside down. The reason why we turn it upside down is because this cake has been steamed. That presentation isn't as nice. We would add some caramel to the bottom of the cake pan. Place the cake back in, some caramel on the top. Let that relax.
Set a timer for the cake.
Alexa, set a timer for
Please.
27 minutes.
Please, Alexa. Please,
I know,
Alexa.
I'm a sausage. Okay, let's troubleshoot this recipe. Most ovens at home will not be on target. Buy one of those thermometers for your oven. Some ovens can run 45 degrees, hotter or colder. This is a steam cake recipe. It's going to be much more forgiving. So when we design these segments, I think about where can someone go wrong. If you, at 30 minutes, if you trust me and you preheat your oven 30 minutes ahead of time, it will recover so you can open your oven door. So it's going to be that hot, you're going to have enough heat in there to retain, whereas beforehand you may not. Although this recipe says 30 minutes, I want you to take a peek. At the start of the show, we took a peek at the cake. We knew that it got that nice rise in the centre. So we knew it was okay, but you can use a cake tester. If you haven't got a cake tester, use your thermometer. So, use your thermometer. Use a cocktail stick, like a cocktail stick. It should come out clean with any cake. Or use a piece of spaghetti, one of them pieces of spaghetti. Use anything like that would be good to test it. I've done this on purpose for you. Here's one classic what's underbaked. You can see the sides have risen because we know heat comes from the side inwards, and you can see that that's got the belly. If we was to cut this open now, I want to cut this open. You can see that it's not been cooked fully. If we look at that, it's not cooked. It hasn't got the rise in the centre. Can you see? Mm-hmm. See the way the centre's not cooked. So I done that on purpose for you. To show you that even though it says 30 minutes, your oven could be off. So be sure to use a cake tester. And that's not just for my recipe, that's for any time. My goal as your friend now, as your a person who'll be on a crystal cruise with you, having a wee dance and a few drinky poos, is someone to teach you where you can go wrong. So always use a cake tester and then you'll always go right. With this one, it's quite hard within the minutes what I've allowed for it to overcook it. Normally if the cake's overcooked, it will crack on the top. Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at two different cakes here, Mrs. Spielberg. So now what we've got, this one's been steamed, which is the steaming process, and this one's been cooked, dry cooked, which is the normal process. No water bath. You can see just by looking at it, the one what's been cooked in the dry heat, no water bath, has a darker colour. That's a Maillard reaction.
Mahogany.
Pardon?
Mahogany.
Mahogany. It's more of a mahogany, and this one's more of a caramel. So let's cut them open. I'm going to take the cake, and you can see that it's soft. So I'm going to cut these open, and we'll see the crumbs. So let's take a look at the crumbs on both. I'm going to move this out the way. The steam one has much of it's going to be a lot moister than what the dry one is. You'll be able to tell by the crumb. They're both phenomenal. They're both fantastic. If I gave you one of each, you'd be as happy as a cat in a fish shop, But I will say, you can actually tell by the crumb is different on the steam one. It's got a moister crumb to it than the dry one. The two of them are absolutely fabulous. And, this cake is just something that started in the 70s in Lancashire, England. and it's a cake that I absolutely love. And it's a cake that if you want to get la-di-da, it'll support any of your cutters. So you could use any style cutter on this. So, but you don't really have to when we're cooking at home. We should be able to just slice the cake, a little bit of ice cream and a small amount of the sauce. I think a little goes a long way. You can serve this with ice cream or just some whipped cream. It's a jolly good cake. You can make this a couple of days ahead of time. It does freeze well. I usually freeze it. I'll freeze it without the caramel. I'll make the cake. I'll wrap it in let it cool down. I'll wrap it in some plastic wrap, and then I'll double ziplock it. When it comes out, I will actually take it and then I'll put the caramel on it. It makes for a really, really great cake. It's fantastic.
I think with all the exhaust from the kitchen, we're going to have a line out the door because I think we've got like 5 cakes here.
We've got 5 cakes. It took me 5 cakes. You know, you invest time in our show. You come every week and you're so kind with your comments. And the key for me is to share everything that I love about life. I love cooking. You know, I'm from Liverpool, and Keith Steiner, it was his birthday this week. Happy birthday, Keith. I know I sent you a message, but he's a big Beatles fan. You know, the Beatles would sing songs and it was just beautiful. And for me, it's about cooking. And I know that if you have success with a recipe, you're going to share that with people who you love, and you're going to enhance that. So for this small window that you dedicate to us and you come on, I want to show you everything. So it took me 5 cakes to get where we are. The good news is we have many people today coming. Some of our guests,
Bob Brookhyser's who's on.
Bob
Yep,
Brookhyser,
Lisa's coming.
yeah.
I think our friends Annabelle and Simon.
They're coming to pick up cakes. So the show not only brings you joy, it brings our neighbours joy and our friends. So that's about it. If anyone doesn't have any questions, I do apologise. Yes.
What's next week?
Next week, let's have a guess. Anyone got any guesses what next week could be? Well, next week, we asked you last month, what would you like to learn? And a lot of you said, Mrs. Spielberg's eggplant parmesan. Yeah, that's what you... Crystal Cruises goes all over the world, some of the finest destinations in the whole world. But you said you wanted Mrs. Spielberg.
Wendy got it right away.
Wendy. Mrs. Spielberg's eggplant parmesan. We brought her into the kitchen. We gave her a jolly good recipe testing, and I have to say, I know I'm going to...
10 stars.
It's even Mrs. Spielberg, you know, when you shared it with me, I was over the moon. It's probably the best eggplant parmesan I've ever tasted, and what makes it even better is normally with eggplant parmesan, we have a garlic bread with it. This one combines the two in one eggplant parmesan. That's how good it is. It's so good. Have a jolly nice week, everybody. Hey, if you get a chance, if you missed Friday night show, be sure to go along and take a look. It was really beautiful. I won't tell you the last song of it, but it had me welled up in tears. And I think Mrs. Spielberg is learning that song as well.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but I will try.
Have a wonderful week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to share as much positivity as you can, especially during these times. It's always better to feel positive than what it is to feel negative. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Eggplant parmesan.
See you next week. Bye, guys.